What if entire communities were built not on farming, trade, or industry, but on fraud? Across rural China, there are villages where counterfeiting isn't just a crime, it is the foundation of local life. From fake designer handbags to counterfeit medicine, these hidden economies reveal a controversial side of China's development, an underground world sustained by necessity, corruption, and global demand for cheap imitations. For decades, the phrase "made in China" has represented global manufacturing, inexpensive, fast, and ubiquitous. Yet behind the gleaming factories of Shenzhen and Guangzhou lies a darker network of counterfeit villages. These communities specialize in producing fake goods with astonishing scale and precision. According to the OECD, China is responsible for more than 80% of the world's counterfeit exports. In 2019 alone, the global value of counterfeit products originating from China was estimated at over $400 billion, a figure greater than the GDP of Austria. While many imagine shady street vendors or criminal gangs, the reality is stranger. Entire villages sustain themselves by producing and selling counterfeits, often with the tacit tolerance of local officials. One of the most famous examples is Dafen, a village near Shenzhen. In the 1980s, struggling farmers transformed their livelihoods by copying the works of Western masters. Today, alleyways are filled with thousands of Van Goghs, Picassos, and Monets, drying in the subtropical sun. At its peak, 70% of the world's oil painting reproductions came from this single community. This is not petty crime, it is industrialized imitation. Families pass down painting techniques to their children, creating a multi-generational economy of replicas. For many, counterfeiting was not about deception, but survival. When farming no longer paid, copying masterpieces became a lifeline. Other towns specialize in different markets. Wenzhou, for example, has long been infamous for counterfeit shoes. Factories churn out clones of Nike, Adidas, and Puma sneakers that are so precise even experts struggle to spot differences. These operations mimic legitimate businesses. They have supply chains, quality control systems, and logistics networks. Yet every pair is fraudulent. In local culture, this is not always considered shameful. The Chinese term shenzai, once used to describe mountain bandits, has evolved into slang for clever knockoffs. Shenzai goods are often seen as creative adaptations, not theft. Within these counterfeit economies, making fakes is less a crime than a craft. In many villages, counterfeiting fills the void left by China's rapid modernization. As urban expansion consumed farmland and global markets crushed traditional agriculture, rural populations faced dwindling options. Counterfeit production offered a way out. Parents teach children how to embroider fake luxury logos, mix low-cost chemicals for counterfeit cosmetics, or copy holographic packaging. Local shops and restaurants thrive on the income generated by these illicit businesses. Even law enforcement officers, sometimes with family ties to counterfeiters, may turn a blind eye. A villager once told a Chinese journalist, "If they shut us down, the whole town starves." For these communities, fraud is not simply a choice, but a collective survival mechanism. The survival of counterfeit economies also depends on corruption. Local officials, who should be shutting down illicit workshops, often benefit from them instead. Protection money or unofficial taxes are collected in exchange for silence. Every few years, Beijing announces major crackdowns, seizing millions of fake goods in publicized raids. Yet these campaigns are often symbolic. Shut down one workshop and another reappears in a nearby town. Counterfeiting is too deeply woven into rural economies to be eradicated with one-off operations. The range of counterfeits goes far beyond handbags and sneakers. Some villages specialize in counterfeit alcohol, bottling cheap spirits under premium labels. Others produce fake pharmaceuticals, a deadly industry that has led to thousands of hospitalizations across Asia and Africa. Entire ghost villages have been transformed into call centers for online scams. In Fujian province, clusters of homes host networks of phone fraud schemes, fake investment pitches, and identity theft operations. Victims of these scams are global, stretching from the United States to Africa. What looks like a sleepy rural town may in fact be an international hub of digital deception. It is tempting to see counterfeiting purely as criminal, yet the human stories reveal moral complexity. Many participants are displaced farmers or underemployed workers with no viable alternatives. To them, producing knockoffs is simply a way to survive in a rapidly changing economy that has left them behind. The ethical grey zone is part of what makes these counterfeit economies so resilient. When fraud becomes synonymous with survival, eradication is not only difficult, it risks humanitarian consequences for entire communities. The effects of these counterfeit villages ripple far beyond China. Fake goods infiltrate markets worldwide, from luxury boutiques in Paris to street stalls in Lagos. According to US Customs, 90% of counterfeit seizures originate from China and Hong Kong. The losses to global brands amount to billions annually, but the consequences extend beyond financial damage. Counterfeit auto parts can cause accidents, fake medicines can kill, and faulty electronics can catch fire. In many cases, the hidden cost of fraud is human life. As global commerce moves online, so too have counterfeit villages. Instead of selling on backstreet, counterfeiters now operate through WeChat, underground e-commerce sites, and imitation versions of platforms like Taobao. Entire communities sustain themselves by managing these digital storefronts, shipping fraudulent goods worldwide under the guise of legitimate businesses. Investigators describe these operations as fractals. No matter how far one digs, whether at the level of an online seller, a warehouse, or a rural workshop, the same pattern emerges, a system in which fraud is embedded at every layer. China's leadership is aware of the global embarrassment that counterfeiting creates. President Xi Jinping has repeatedly called for a shift toward authentic innovation, emphasizing intellectual property protection. But Beijing faces a paradox. Eliminating counterfeit villages could plunge thousands of people into poverty, risking social unrest. As a result, enforcement is often selective, with campaigns designed more for international headlines than systemic reform. Counterfeiting in China cannot be understood without cultural context. For centuries, copying was a respected form of learning. Apprentices in calligraphy or painting were trained to replicate their master's work. Within this tradition, imitation was not theft, but flattery. The rise of Shanzai culture reflects this history. In modern China, knockoffs have been celebrated as symbols of cleverness and resistance to elite control. What the global economy views as fraud, local culture may interpret as ingenuity. This cultural backdrop explains why counterfeit villages are not simply tolerated, but sometimes admired. The future of China's counterfeit villages is uncertain. As the nation continues to modernize, some communities may shift into legitimate industries, but others are adapting by moving deeper into cybercrime, cryptocurrency fraud, and global money laundering networks. As long as poverty persists, counterfeiting will remain attractive. For villagers faced with starvation, the moral debate is irrelevant. Fraud represents survival, even if the costs are borne by unsuspecting consumers around the world. China's hidden villages of fraud expose a dark contradiction within globalization. On one hand, They reveal the ingenuity of communities adapting to harsh realities. On the other, they illustrate the dangers of an underground economy that sacrifices safety and honesty for survival. Behind every fake handbag, every counterfeit pill, and every online scam lies a village whose very existence depends on deception. These villages are not anomalies, but systemic reflections of global demand, local poverty, and cultural attitudes toward imitation. As long as the world craves cheap goods, counterfeit towns will continue to thrive. They are not just places of fraud, they are microcosms of survival, corruption, and the hidden costs of a global economy built on appearances.